These are some of the key lessons that I've learned through life that are not taught in school. Basically, all of this has to do with money in some way, even your relationships. I went from living in poverty, and within 15 years, I have a net worth of over $1 million. So if that interests you, subscribe to the channel. I cover a lot more of these in much more detail. School was never meant to teach you to be an entrepreneur or to make you be rich in any way, shape, or form. What school has been made for is basically teach you how to be an employee. They're going to teach you math, how to read, how to write, a bit of history, things like that. But it's really geared towards making you an employee. You have to take that information and go a few steps further if you want to do more in your life. Who you marry, I believe, is the most important decision of your entire life, especially if you think about finances and just happiness in life. So when you do that, before I would get married, I would want to see whoever I'm marrying, I want to see how they deal with conflict, how they deal with stress. That could be a layoff, that could be a sick family member, that could be a whole slew of different things, but pay attention during rough times. How do they cope with it? Do they go through and work with you, talk through it, and maybe help come up with a better way or a solution to solve that issue? Or do they turn to coping with like addiction, beer? Do they have anger? Do they have drug use? Do they become violent? Like, how is it that they react? Do they try to manipulate people? You really are going to see somebody's true colors when they're under high stress situations. Think about it this way. Your spouse may love to save money and you like to spend money, or you like to save and they like to spend. How do they deal with that? How do you deal with that? Is there a way that you can find a middle ground and you can enjoy life now while still save for the future, which would be a healthy balance? Or is it swayed one way or the other, and when they say they'll do something, they're not following through? That may be a red flag. If someone's saving and they want to plan for the future, how are they with risk? So let's say somebody just wants to save the money, but it's not really earning any interest. That person may not want to invest, but investments may actually gather higher yields and higher returns, which may turn out to be better over the long term. How are they with debt? Is someone always using credit cards and going deep into debt, paying high interest? And then how is each partner with patience? So if I want something, am I okay to wait a year? Am I okay to wait 5 years? Or do I want everything today, and therefore I'm putting everything on credit and loans and things like that, and it's being harder and harder to pay whatever my bills are? So the big ones out of all of this is, do you have the same values? Do you have the same faith? Why do I say faith? Well, it's not as strong as it used to be, but let's say someone is Catholic and someone is Jewish, for example. I'm not saying anyone is better than the other. And it comes to Christmas time, let's say, or Hanukkah, or any of these celebrations for those religions. What do you explain, say, during Christmas, if you have children? Who's Jesus Christ? Is that the Son of God, or is that someone that needed to be punished by crucifixion? So the two different sides have to work that out. So that becomes more of an issue when you have children. It's less of an issue if it's just two people coming together. But raising kids is a place where there's a lot more friction between people. The other one is politics. So in the recent years in elections, I've seen some couples break up because someone voted Democrat or Republican or independent, or didn't vote, whatever that might be. So if you don't have alignment on your values, your faith, and your politics, that can really pull people apart. And I feel as though that faith and some of the values come more into play when you have children. The other thing is kids. Do you want any kids? Do you want one kid? Do you want 2, 3, 4? How many do you want? Have that conversation before you get married. One thing that comes out when you're having kids is, how are you going to parent the kids? How are you going to discipline them? How are you going to raise them with your values, morals, and beliefs? So one may say, I want to put the kid in timeout when they do something, or I want to talk to them. The other person wants to spank them or do something in that way. So if the two people don't agree on that, that can be a conflict as well. The other one is, okay, when the kid's hungry, what are you feeding them? Is it all fruits and vegetables? Is it all organic vegetables and fruits? Is it just any of it, or are you okay with cookies once in a while, every meal, whatever that might be. And people will fight over food choices for children as well. The other one is, are you okay to have tablets, TV, electronic devices such as that? Or should there be no TV, no tablets? Or is there a certain compromise where they're allowed a certain number of hours per day? The other one is, don't count on help from others. You're going to hear a lot of people go, oh, I'll have the baby all the time and whatever. And some people will follow through, but don't count on it. Get daycare lined up basically as soon as the kid's going to be born, because daycare generally has wait lists, at least in the areas that I'm in, and that could be anywhere from a couple of months to a year or more on the wait list. So if you want to get into a specific daycare, if it's in a certain proximity to where you work or where you live, make sure to put them on the daycare list as quick as possible. Same with summer camps. I've noticed that summer care is difficult to come by, and you may need to schedule summer care in January so that they're ready for June. And I noticed they fill up very quickly. So just things that a lot of people didn't know. I'd say the next major decision in life is where you're going to live, what house are you going to live in. And I also have a video on how to buy a home and all the ins and outs of that, go into a lot more detail. Basic things, you have a mortgage, you have options of fixed or variable. Variable would include like an adjustable rate mortgage, an ARM. They're becoming more popular. That caused a lot of issues around 2008, 2009 for a lot of people going under and unable to pay for their homes. I prefer fixed rate 30-year mortgages. The reason being is that you have the same principal and interest payment portion of your mortgage for 30 years. And yeah, it might be slightly more expensive than the 20 or 15, but if you think about it, I can always pay twice the principal each payment, and that would automatically become paid off in about 15 years. So that's what I do for mine. But if I were to, say, lose an income, I still have the option of not paying as much money monthly. And a lot of stuff happens throughout life. You don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. You may have car accidents, disease. Somebody may lose their job over a 30-year period. There's a lot of things that can happen. So this just reduces my overall risk of that. So I can reduce the amount of money I have to pay per month. You can also have points. I don't use points whenever I buy a mortgage or buy a house because I may refinance it, and the points are basically prepaying the interest. I also have videos on how to get a better credit score, but your credit is important when buying a home because you can actually save up to about 1% your interest rate. And 1% on a $500,000 house, let's say for instance, is $5,000 a year, or approximately $400 a month in interest difference just because your credit score is better or worse. The down payment is typically about 5 to 20%. If you want to get rid of your primary mortgage insurance, which is an extra $100 or a couple $100 a month, up until you pay down 20%, if you just put down 20% in the beginning, you can avoid that from the beginning. If you've already gotten a mortgage, you can pay down some more of the money, and once you get to a loan to value ratio of between 80 and 78%, just notify your lender you want the PMI removed. They remove it, and you save a couple $100 a month. It's well worth it. I would focus on looking for an area that's safe, has decent schools, and avoid any shared driveways or roof. I would also avoid having a pool. The reason why I don't like shared driveways, say you share a driveway and the neighbor doesn't want to take care of their stuff and the driveway is all ripped up and it's causing damage to your car, and they don't feel like they want to fix it or they don't have the money to fix it, guess what? It's not getting fixed unless you fix their side as well. And same with a bad roof. If my roof is going bad and their roof is already leaking, let's say I replace my roof because I want to make sure that my property is maintained, but my neighbor might not be able to afford it or doesn't want to replace their roof. Their problems become my problems because water is going to come through that roof, come through my wall, and damage my house as well. And I'm not the one responsible for all of that damage, but I have to pay for it. The other thing I would say is, when I bought my first house, I didn't walk and drive the entire neighborhood. I didn't do it early or late. One thing I found is I was very close to the border of a not so great of a place, and I was in a town that was a nice town, but since being on the border, I could hear gunshots late at night and some other issues. So I wish I would have done that before I bought that house. The other thing I like to do is go knock on the doors of neighbors, see what the street's like. Uh, I avoid HOAs just because I like to build and grow my own plants and trees and things like that. And I don't want to be told what color my house can be or what color my door can be or what windows I can have. So I don't want the extra layer of government control through an HOA or where I can park my car or things like that. Uh, Also, they might not allow you to park or have parties at your house in an HOA, depending on which one it is. The other thing I like to do is check a map of my house. The reason I do that is because I want to see if there's any trains behind me or there's a police station or a fire department that may make a bunch of noise if I'm a light sleeper. And think about, am I a 9 to 5 person, second shift, third shift? Do I have kids? Keep that in mind as you have that. I would also suggest always getting a house that's at least 2 or 3 bedrooms and has 1.5 baths. The reason why is because that's what people want to buy. So if people want to buy those homes and I have that house and I want to move, it's easier to sell that house. If it's a 1 bedroom house with 1 bathroom, I'm not going to be able to sell that to many people. Basically, my only option would be either a retiree or somebody that's single. So if you notice, I put 1 is who you marry, 2 is what the house is, because if I overpay for the house, I'm going to be paying for a long time. The third most important thing I would consider is my career, a job, my education, business, that sort of thing. Why did I put it in this order? Because if I marry somebody that spends everything I make anyway and goes deep into debt, it doesn't really matter how much money I make. It's always going to be the same. I'm going to be broke. Even if you make $1 million a year, but your spouse goes out and spends $2 million, you're going to have a problem. If the house I have is, $1 million versus $250,000, one's much easier to maintain, to pay off, and it's much less of a stress on our income. So that decision is also going to be made with who I marry. No matter which of these I have, the goal here is whenever I get paid, I want to buy assets, and I want my assets to buy liabilities wherever possible, because that's where I have money. And then the assets keep producing money, even if I don't go to work. If all I do is I get paid and I buy liabilities, cars, a house, you know, purses, watches, cell phones, TVs, that sort of thing, there's not going to be any money left over. So I want to always pay myself about 15% towards assets and then have those assets eventually free me from whatever job or business that I'm working. I don't necessarily want to retire, but it gives you the option to do that. And you can do that much earlier if you wanted to. So the main one here, learn a valuable set of skills. What do people need? What do they want? So I'm going to keep my return on investment in mind. College is not always worth it. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say the college tuition is $40,000 a year, and I'm looking at a job that only makes $30,000 a year. So I'm going to spend $120,000 on tuition. I'm going to come out with all this college debt, and then I'm going to start working and not even be able to make that amount of money to pay it back in a short period of time. So I'm going to be working for many years. I might as well just went out to work, because I can make much more than $30,000 with no college education. There are many jobs that still pay well over $80,000 or $100,000 a year. If you've ever heard of the concept of dirty jobs with Mike Rowan, that's kind of the same idea. If you like to be a plumber, a carpenter, an electrician, you can get all that information from either working as an apprentice and a journeyman, or you can go into a trade school. So for me, I didn't go through a trade school, but at the age of 12, I started doing pool construction, laying concrete, that sort of thing. I learned a lot of trig with 3, 4, 5 triangles and squaring up corners with steel beams and stuff like that. So it was a lot of fun. And then I worked into home construction and made decent money there as well. So as you can see here, construction, mechanics, HVAC, some of the equipment operators, line crew, they can make well over $100,000 a year, and there's no college education required. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to start a business, first thing I want to do is limit as much risk as possible. So there's things like LLCs and other things that can reduce your liability in case it goes bankrupt. But it's also how much money am I putting up front? So I have a bunch of videos here where it shows you how to make over $100,000 a year, starting landscaping businesses and commercial farms and things like that with as little as $1,000 to get started with that. So check those out as well. I also go through the failure rates of different businesses. Say if I want to start a business from scratch, generally about 5 years, half of the businesses have closed. Now, if you start a franchise, costs a little bit more money up front, but they solve a lot of problems with computers, logistics, hiring, menus, advertising, things like that. They have a much higher success rate. So they even have less than a 1 or 2% failure rate in some of these. And I have a video on that as well. So if I'm going to start a business, there's 3 things here I'm going to kind of put as a Venn diagram. So you're going to want to do something that you would enjoy doing for a long period of time for many years. And you want to have good skills at it, and you have to do something that people are willing to pay for. If all 3 of these things come together, that's a business idea. If you only enjoy it and you're good at it, but nobody's willing to pay for it, that's a hobby. If you enjoy it, people pay for it, but you're not great at that, you get bad reviews, no repeat customers. Most of your money comes from repeat customers, so that's what you want to focus on. And if you have good skills and people pay for it, but you don't enjoy it, you're going to get burnt out. So really, you need all 3 to have a really good business. A good question is, does anybody do something similar? It's actually a great thing if other people do similar things. You can go to those businesses, see how they operate, see what they do well, see what they can improve upon, and then you can actually improve upon their weaknesses and keep their strengths. And you could probably take a large amount of customers from going from there to your place. The other thing is, if those other places are still very busy, it means there's a lot of demand and there's not enough supply. So if you can enter that market, offer another product very similar, whatever that may be, or service, you may be able to gain a lot of clientele, and it just basically shortens the line at the other place. You can also buy an established business. So similar to a franchise, there's a lot of people that have a lot of businesses, say plumbers, mechanics, things like this. There's a massive amount of baby boomers at the moment that are looking to retire, that they can't keep working or they don't want to keep working. And they have successful businesses, but they don't have kids that want to take over the business. So they're willing to sell it, and they might just close shop. So you could work with them. You might not even have to pay them money today. You can utilize their expertise of running this business for a number of years, and you can use them as a mentor how to run that business. And you can structure the deal in such a way that agreement on the cost of whatever the business is with them. But instead of having to fork over the money out of your pocket, what you could do is structure the deal in such a way that with each year, you pay out, like, say, 10% of the profit of the business. So they get the money. They don't have to keep working. You get the business. You can keep paying them off of the percentage of whatever that profit is. They're happy. They're getting their money each year. You're limiting your risk because you didn't take and put a bunch of capital out, and you found a solution for both of you. So there's ways to do this without a lot of money. The other thing I want to point out is when people look at business or look at risk, they don't quite understand some things. So, like, if someone says this is $1 million, do you want to buy it? I don't know. What's the risk? What's the potential reward? I want to look at what those odds are and kind of gauge that. Let's say, for example, I want to start a YouTube business. Let's say I have a 1 in 20 chance of making, significant income, let's say $50,000. And so my odds are 1 in 20 or 5%. The risk, maybe I have to buy a cell phone with a camera such as this, which you can use that as your normal phone, so you don't have to put that much money out. You might want some lighting, maybe a stand, but less than $500, let's say, total risk. So if I take 5%, so the $500 divide by 5%, I come out with a risk-adjusted cost of $10,000 is what I'm effectively doing if I did this 20 times. So what would I potentially make? For 1 in 20 people, probably make about $50,000. So if I were to risk $10,000, would that be a wise risk to make $50,000? I would take that deal over and over again. So that seems like a good deal. Let's say I take the lottery, and this is why people say the lottery is basically a tax on people that are not good with math or the poor. And Let's say that lottery ticket costs $5, but you have this very small percentage chance that you actually win. The total winnings, if you did win, is $1 million in this instance. But what is the risk-adjusted cost? You're looking at $5 trillion. So I would never take that risk because it's pretty much worthless. Like, I would much rather take this risk time and time again and multiply my money with those risks if I take enough chances at it. Take asymmetric risks that are in your favor. Try to look for systems and processes that you can use to drive efficiency. And also, you want to be able to have it so repeatable and scalable that you make money in your sleep. For instance, why did I do this on YouTube? One, to help other people, as well as to give my family and friends a way to repeat what I've done, as well as if I was not here in the future, my daughter could watch them years from now. But the other reason is because YouTube offers a system and a process where I don't have to constantly be teaching somebody. They can just click on this days, weeks, months, years later, and I still get some amount of revenue from the ads and things like that. Number 4, live below your means. Basically, you want a budget. And I almost want to flip this around, but basically you have 50% is what you spend on what you need, 30% is on what you want, 20% should be some combination of savings and investing. I would say you want to be able to invest about 15% or more starting in your 20s until retirement so that you have a comfortable retirement when you get there. First thing I always do, you start off with some amount of emergency fund. Uh, 3 to 6 months would be great. If you can only get $1,000 together, there's no real magic number. It's just have some amount of money that gives you a cushion in case the car breaks down or there's an emergency somewhere. And that makes that emergency from basically taking over your life and causing issues emotionally and in your relationships to just a money problem. So it's much easier if your transmission goes or your starter or something in a car and you're able to just pay the bill and go back to work and it's not like freaking out and things like that. So have an emergency fund. If you have 3 to 6 months, that would be best. And where would I put my emergency fund? Well, I would put that in FDIC high interest accounts. Just realize that it will rain as soon as accounts are dry. So when you don't have money, it seems like that's when all the bad things happen. And then you're like, oh, shoot, what am I doing? So if you have money in an account, it seems like it just kind of keeps the problems at bay. So I don't know why, but that's how it always happens. If you have debt, if it is high interest and it's just to consume, it's basically a poison. It's taking money from your future you to pay for what you bought in the past, and you're making the credit card companies rich. If you have low interest, fixed rate debt, to earn more is okay. If it's basically to buy a house, like a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, that's okay. So you have a snowball method or avalanche method. And the difference between those two are basically you could, with the snowball method, you pay off the smallest principal first just to get a quick win. Basically, when you see progress and you get one less bill every month, it's more of a habit. The reason why people get into debt isn't because they're good or bad at math. They're getting into debt because it's more of an emotional thing. It's the emotional response is what you have to break from this. So you have to get a couple of quick wins to see that you're making progress. So paying off the smallest principal first, you get progress and you're like, oh, this is good. And then you take that amount of money and you pay that towards the next lowest debt and you pay that off and you keep going through that. When you're doing that, you feel better and better about that and more confident that you can achieve the goal. Mathematically, it's not the best way to do it, but how people actually operate, it's the best. For me, I paid off the highest interest debt first, and I paid everything off and was debt-free within about 2 years for all my school debts and car debt and that sort of thing. But I paid highest interest first because I'm a math guy, I'm an engineer, and that's just me. I learned that put at least 15% away every pay. Use dollar cost averaging where you're buying every pay period the same dollar amount of stock, regardless if it goes up or down. You're buying at the lows, you're buying at the highs, and over time, if it's good quality fund, it goes up. there may be some down periods and you'll see ups and downs. Realize that prior performance does not guarantee future performance. Investments can lose value. After you've paid yourself through your retirement accounts and tax advantage accounts, you're going to live on what's left. So some people will say, well, there's not enough money to live on. Well, how is it some people have millions of dollars a year and they're still broke, and other people make $40,000 a year and they're still broke? There has to be some point where there's just lifestyle creep. There's a lot of things that we want, that we buy, that we don't necessarily need to have. I won't go into detail with that here, but I have videos on that as well. So if you think that you just need more money, you earn more money, you acquire new skills, you want to focus on how do you solve other people's problems. And I have videos on how to ask for a raise, how to go for a new job, things like that. Number 5, retirement accounts. So a company-sponsored retirement account could be a 401k. If it's a nonprofit, it could be a 403b. There's individual retirement agreements or accounts, depending on who you ask. And there's a bunch of public service ones as well. What you'll find with a lot of these is you have the option of a Roth versus a traditional. So basically with a Roth, you put money in today after taxes, and then you can withdraw it tax and penalty free, depending if you at least go to 59 and a half years of age, or it's been open for 5 years and it's used for, $10,000 down for a primary home or a few other things. Traditional accounts are similar in that they have tax advantages, but the money that goes in with a traditional account, you pay taxes when you withdraw the money. You don't pay taxes today. So if you think you're going to be at a lower tax bracket in retirement, traditional is better. If you think you'll be at a higher tax bracket in retirement, Roth is better, or you can do a mix of both. I also go through how much does Social Security cover. So generally it covers about 40% if you're under $100,000. And generally you want to cover about 80% of your pre-retirement income. So about 40% here, and you probably want about 40% in your retirement account to cover everything. And also there's a question of how much do you need? So do you need 80% of your pre-retirement income? Or is that just what you want? Do you want 100%, 200%? How do you want to live? Also, with a lot of these, say 401ks, 403bs, things like that, you may have company match, and that could be anywhere from a couple percent up to maybe 12%. So it depends who you work for. Taxes. So I also discuss what are deductions, what kind of credits could you get, what are tax advantage accounts, such as these retirement accounts here. If you have a non-retirement account, what are the capital gains on long or short term? Basically, long-term capital gains have a lot more benefits where you might only be taxed a maximum of 20%, or maybe it's 0%, depending on your income. Short-term capital gains are basically taxed at your normal income. You could also have qualified dividends. So depending on how long you hold the stock when the dividend's paid, you may be taxed similar to long-term capital gains and pay a maximum of 20%. If you have real estate is benefited with taxes. So let's say I had a house, I sold the house, I was able to use a capital gains exclusion. So you can make, as a single person, $250,000 in capital gains from the sale of the property, but if I've lived there for 2 of the prior 5 years, I don't pay any taxes on $250,000. If I'm married, I can exclude up to $500,000, so that's pretty nice. If I have real estate and I sell it and I buy something in the same year, I can use a 1031 exchange. I can also use depreciation to reduce my taxes. There's a bunch of different tricks of wealthy people can use. And when I say wealthy people, it also means middle class, lower class. You can take advantage of these things, and the reason why people are wealthy isn't because they had a bunch of money to start. Realize that 80% of millionaires were not given any money. So they started out, they worked a number of years, they got to about the late 40s when they became millionaires, and they just apply the same principles, the same laws and rules that the rich do. Number 7, insurance. I go through like how to pick plans, how to go in network, out of network. What does that mean? What's the max out of pocket that I would pay? What are my deductibles? Is it a low deductible plan or a high deductible plan? If I have a high deductible healthcare plan, then I can have an HSA. I can invest that money. If I have a low deductible, I can use basically a flexible spending account where I don't have to pay taxes on the money that I'm using for healthcare. What's my co-insurance? So that's the amount of money that I pay out when I go to the doctor. And then I want to know what my coverage is. A lot of them have 80 or 90% coverage. And do realize that when you go to a hospital, the hospital may be in network. This is kind of tricky, but the doctor that is working at the hospital may be out of network. So you may actually get an in-network bill and an out-of-network bill just because the hospital's in and the doctor's out, or vice versa. I go through healthcare, life insurance, car insurance, there's home insurance, you have business insurance, umbrella. This was interesting. We had my wife's grandfather actually ran into a building, but at least he had umbrella coverage. So this is an extra $1 million of liability coverage on your car and house and other things. So if you get in an accident and someone's hurt, you're not using the minimum insurance. So you would have a couple of $100,000 on the vehicle insurance, and then the umbrella would add another $1 million insurance. So that helped care for the people that he got in an accident with without going after his personal assets. So that was good that he had that. Number 8, I've seen a lot of scams throughout the years. If it seems too good to be true, it's probably a scam. Just realize that if anything is like get rich quick without a massive sacrifice, it's a scam. Basically, if you try to get rich quick and it's easy and anybody can do it, you're looking at losing all of your money. By the way, none of us are related to a rich Nigerian prince that wants to give you millions of dollars. If someone wants to give you advice, be careful what you pay for, but do listen and try to extract whatever information you can from that, because there's a lot of people out there that are very intelligent, but listen to them in their field of expertise. What I mean by that is, I would talk to a carpenter about carpentry. I would talk to a mason about masonry, a mechanic about fixing cars. But I'm not going to ask and listen to broke people telling me how to be rich. I'm not going to go ask somebody that's divorced how to keep a healthy marriage. I'm not going to ask somebody that's wildly out of shape how to stay in shape. See what they did. If they're doing what you want to do or have succeeded in the areas that you want to succeed, ask for advice from those people. The other one is goals. So I'm going to list SMART. So you want specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals in mind. And the reason why I wrote it out that way is, let's say I want 1,000 subscribers within 6 months of starting YouTube. How would I do that? I would say I want 1,000 subscribers, but that's an output. That's not what I'm putting in. So I'm going to say I want to create over 100 videos within 2 months. So I can measure 100 videos. It's very specific. It's measurable. Could I do it in a month? Well, I need 3 per day. Is it relevant? Yes, it's relevant to where I was trying to go. Time bound, it's within 2 months. So that's a SMART goal. So I was able to achieve that in 2024. And now I'm at over 30,000 subscribers and going. So the other thing is, comparison robs happiness and basically money. So don't compare your life to other people's lives. There's always going to be someone that has more. There's always going to be somebody that has less. Be happy with what you have. Try to do better each and every day. Take it step by step. It's sort of like if somebody's trying to get in shape or to lose weight, the weight didn't come on, overnight where somebody puts on like 100 pounds. You can't just go on a full diet where you're not eating or something like that. It's not healthy. You're going to crash and it's not going to change anything. But if you make small habit changes, so if it was trying to lose weight, trying to cut out soda, trying to eat more fruits and vegetables, do things that I enjoy and pick those areas one bit at a time, that's how somebody would achieve that goal. If somebody's trying to become financially independent and have a lot of money in order to live securely, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a couple of years probably to get there. But if you take small incremental steps, so maybe somebody can't put 15% away each and every week, but maybe they could put 1%. And then the following year they put 2%. The following year they put 4%. And each time they got a raise, they could do a small step towards that. That would be towards your goal. So just always ask yourself, is this putting me towards my goal, or is this taking me a step back from my goal? And try to pick things that put you in the right position. Also realize that life is not fair. Do the best that you can with what you have. Again, take those small steps every day. I would highly advise you to try to find a mentor that has achieved what you want to achieve. And one of the ways to get them to help you is see what goals they have and try to help them achieve their goals. By you helping them to achieve their goals, even if they're not paying you, you will learn more from that mentorship than money could have bought you. So I've had many mentors throughout my life. I've helped them in many ways, and I've become a much better person because of it, as well as I've made a lot of money and I've been able to invest and basically take risks. I've gone from basically going to food banks and churches for food, because as a kid we didn't have food and we didn't always have running hot water or electricity or heat in the winter, and that sucked, and I never wanted to do that again. So when I said I'm going to have my family, I wouldn't do that to them. So now we have all of those things. Our bills are paid for months in advance, and it's a much easier life. So it's easier for me to do the hard things now to prepare for a rainy day a year or 2 years from now or something like that. So that's why I do it. Well, thank you for watching. If you'd like to subscribe, I cover how to make more money, how to save, how to invest, how to be an entrepreneur. All those things are covered here. There's also a free Discord channel where people can talk. Just realize if you go on the Discord channel, sometimes they have scammers try to pretend to be me. So just realize that I don't ask for money from anybody, and I'm not trying to sell you anything. I just have conversations with people about once a week. It's generally after 8 p.m. when my family's sleeping. So, all right. Well, thank you for watching. Please subscribe and have a great day.